Dreams. This work does not speak directly to dreams, however certain things can be said about them. The caution expressed is loosely based upon the observation that it's useless to study our dreams, that any psychological system based upon the study of dreams is fantastic, because immediately one begins to study dreams they alter. Some know, for example, that in modern physics, when we investigate the microcosm, a world of atoms, then we interfere with what we are investigating. The instruments for investigation interfere with what we are trying to study, which has been demonstrated in the double-slit experiment, the original experiment, performed in 1801 by Thomas Young at the Royal Institution, showed that light acts as a wave. Further experiments, however, showed that light actually behaves as both a wave and as particles, revealing its quantum nature. Again, we all know that one of the difficulties of self-observation, such as observation of our thoughts, is that observation interferes with our thoughts. This is particularly the case when we try to observe forms of imagination. Immediately one tries to observe their imagination, it stops because the instrument for observation interferes with what is being observed. Taking a gross example, suppose that we struck a match to see whether there was a mouse in the room, we interfere with what we are observing, and it's likely the mouse disappears. In the case of dreams, therefore, the work teaches that once we begin to pay attention to them, we interfere and so change them. It is for this reason that the study of dreams as a psychological method of approach to oneself is discouraged. However, the work does offer something further about dreams in that there are many different kinds of dreams not recognized by Western psychology. Dreams, the work teaches, are of every kind because they can come from every center, and every part of a center. George Gurdjieff once remarked that most dreams come from moving center, from haphazard connections taking place in our moving center. Strictly speaking though, most dreams come from instinct moving center. They are echoes of things seen during the day, sensations, and movements. Such dreams are echoes of the life of instinct moving center during waking hours. These have no meaning, and so are of little consequence. However, dreams can also come from other centers. Instinct moving dreams are, generally speaking, chaotic. Then again, some emotional impression such as a fright may enter into these instinct-moving dreams. Particularly if the fright connects itself with earlier fears which we have consented to and not worked against. The point to emphasize is that the work teaches that there are different kinds of dreams, originating in different centers and different parts of centers, which means that there are intellectual dreams, emotional dreams, sexual dreams, moving and instinctive dreams, and there are also dreams that come from the centers we do not use, i.e. higher emotional and higher intellectual centers. Dreams that come from the higher parts of emotional center or even from higher emotional center are always characterized by what can be called dramatic formulation. Let's suppose that a person experiences a very dramatic and well-formed dream. Then wonders why they had this vision which seems to have nothing to do with their ordinary life. How, they say to themselves, can such a dream arise which has nothing to do with my own thoughts or experiences? Why should I have such a dream? From what source did this strange experience come? Has it any meaning or not? Most of us admit that occasionally we are visited by very strange dreams, sometimes very wonderfully worked out, and containing some meaning that we cannot grasp. If we consider the ray of creation and how we have in us higher and lower centers, then higher and lower parts of centers, and how influences come down the ray of creation from higher levels, it is not surprising if we find that there are influences in us that are trying to cure us, trying to make us understand ourselves, to comprehend our inner situations and states better. However, it is clear that the language of dreams is not our ordinary language. Let's assume that the ray of creation and all that it means is quite true. Suppose too that the idea of Jacob's ladder is correct, suggest that angels are blowing trumpets in our ears to make us hear better. Let's propose that higher intelligence is working on us and in us at every moment, only we cannot hear its words or understand its meaning. Is it extraordinary that we may receive and be in touch with some greater mind than our own? Recall what the work teaches about higher centers, that higher centers are fully developed in us, and so always transmitting meaning to us, only we cannot hear them, because we cannot hear the finer vibrations. We are tuned in to the life of the earth and of our five senses. Gurdjieff would say that we must listen to ourselves, that if we would but listen to ourselves before embarking on some enterprise or other, we might realize just how useless it was. However, what do we listen to in our ordinary doings? in our lives of ordinary sleep. We listen to the crudest eyes, the most mechanical eyes, the eyes turned outward to external life and its petty adventures. We listen to our jealous eyes, our offended eyes, our negative eyes, and so on. So it is in this context that we cannot hear the influences that are continually coming down to us from higher centers. We do not even listen to our reason, to the higher parts of ordinary centers. Yet all the time there are influences, so clearly expressed in the diagram of the ray of creation, that are trying to reach us, to help us understand better, to cure us of our life maladies, and so lead us to our own inner development. And so occasionally these influences reach us in the form of dreams. When we are cut off from our five senses, the external world registered by them fades away, and we can pass into another world, the world of our invisible selves, which this work is about. Vision quest, the dreamscape, clairvoyance, and spirit walking. Every one of us has had some dream that has made them wonder, some dream that they do not permanently forget, some dream that has some strange quality about it. To those who have had moments of self-remembering in life, when they have seen some quite ordinary thing or person in an entirely different way, it should not be too hard to accept if it is said that such moments have the same quality or inner taste as some rare and unusual dreams. We suddenly see new meaning, and in the case of dreams, feel that they have new dimensions of the same order, even though we cannot grasp it. As when one realizes the ray of creation in themselves, and particularly the side octave from the sun. When we begin to see our own significance, then we should not be surprised to realize that there are forces in us working on centers all the time, to help us awaken, to heal us, to resolve our inadequacies if only we can listen to them. The uproar of personality prevents us from hearing. The continual action of false personality, with all of its intrigues, literally makes us deaf, blind, and dumb. So that everything is pseudo, even what we call our most sincere moments. Consider what a dumb man means in the Gospels. One who can never speak from their understanding is dumb. A person who is always talking from the eyes of false personality is dumb because they can never say anything real. Just in the same way, a blind person is one who could never see anything, never see the meaning of anything, and a deaf person is someone who can never hear anything, even when it is said time and again. They have no mental ears to listen with. We are all deaf, dumb, and blind with regard to the teaching, as given throughout the ages, and only a being at the level of a Christos, i.e. the work, can cure us. We are deaf, dumb, and blind to ourselves, to those higher centers in us that are guiding what we do, because we cannot understand their language. We already have the work in us, all of us do, an external form of this work, the teaching and study of it, the practicing of it, is to open us up to what is already within, to something that we have all lost contact with owing to falling asleep. So it is not strange that sometimes we have experiences that appear to have nothing to do with what we believe is our sole form of life, and that sometimes when our external senses are stilled, or slowed down, we experience dreams that are quite extraordinary about which we understand nothing. Regarding dreams that have a trace of emotional or higher emotional center in their formation, it can simply be said that they are practically always about oneself. They tell us about our inner situation and inner states. Sometimes they represent our inner state in terms of people and situations. The people may or may not represent different eyes in us. The general situation that we are in psychologically may be represented as buildings, scenery, and so on. The dream may be entirely subjective, entirely about ourselves and our inner state. Or it may have a certain objective reference as well, referring to how we are behaving to an actual person and so on. They may represent our inner state in such a way as to show us how we are taking something quite wrongly, as from some former life way of taking things. We know that we have to take everything in a new way in this work. Sometimes a dream which has a trace of higher emotional center behind it will give us a picture of the work, and our relationship to it. Of course it will be mixed up with personal associations, with false personality, however the general form and meaning may still get through to us. Shared now as illustration, is an example of such a dream which is about life and this work, then about the dangers of mixing the two in our thinking and evaluation. It relates to the fact that if we wish to work, then we must be very careful about how we walk in life. The dream is as follows. We are living at a kind of farm. Work people are around us. The peculiarity of this farm is that wherever we walk, we have to travel on duckboards, raised on stilts above a swamp of all kinds of filth and muck, such as one finds in a farmyard. If we slip, we plunge into it, and anything that we lose hold of is lost in the mire. When we sit at a table in conversation, we forget what lies beneath us. We suddenly awaken to the fact that our feet are dangling in the muck and refuse. We have to remember all the time to hold them up above it. Here is a strange dream indeed. If we take it literally, then it is about duckboards, mud, stilts, and so on. One might well say on waking up, what have I to do with this farm situated in a swamp, in which it is necessary to be very careful where one walks? But why should this well-formulated dream come to us? What does it represent in its imagery? What ideas lie in this dream? For instance, do you think that it might represent identifying with life? Do you think that it might represent how one must always remember oneself while navigating our daily routine? In the dream it is said that if we drop anything it is lost. The work says that everything that we do mechanically is lost to us. And what does the work say about talking? That here we forget ourselves most of all. Yet this dream was dreamt just as quoted, without knowledge of what it meant. Think about the dream, for in a sense, it is for anyone in the work. Reflect upon what life should be like. What do you expect from it? Or have you grown up seeing the necessity of making your own life? Life is filth unless you learn the science of duckboards, stilts, and so on. Most people, however, are immersed in the mire and like to remain in it. The language of dreams is not our formatory tongue. A dream is not put in the form of words. It is put in the language of imagery. It is exactly comparable with the language of parables, where it's true that parables are conveyed by means of language, however they indicate images. We all know we do not dream in words, that if we wish to describe our dream we have to turn it into words, which soon lose their meaning. In fact, one cannot express a dream in words, save in a very unclear manner. Parables are the other way around. They are expressed in simple words and transmit imagery. A parable gives the imagery by means of words. The meaning, however, does not lie in the words but in the imagery. A literal-minded person may think that an actual sower went forth to sow, an actual seed fell upon stony ground, etc. But the whole parable of the sower and the seed transcends language completely, passing into the meaning of higher emotional center, which uses only images and so is universally understandable. In other words, we see the beginning here of a universal language, which is the language of higher emotional center, of feeling. Something that we lost with the fall of the Tower of Babel, whereafter we began to babble in confused tongues. One of the extraordinary facts about life is that people imagine they are related only to the external world. This work, however, teaches that we are related to an inner, secret garden and that where we are in this hidden realm is the most important thing. Many dreams refer to where we are in our inner invisible world from which our nightmares arise, and from which much of our unhappiness comes. Each one of us is related to different eyes, to different parts of some enormous building, about which we may sometimes dream. Which room are you in? Within ourselves we have rooms where we can live in discomfort, or comfort, and in ourselves we have a media player that can be switched to one set of influences, or another set of influences. The world today has gone so far into the external senses and into matter, that it seems extraordinary to most people that there is another world to which they have to develop a relationship, in order to have any sort of inner peace, and any center of gravity. An internal world that one can only begin to realize by means of self-observation, by observing I, which is an internal sense organ. Try to notice where you are in yourself at any moment, to what thoughts you are consenting, with what feelings you are identified. Have you yet attained any power of inner freedom from yourself, from mechanical reactions, your mechanical thoughts and feelings induced by external circumstances? Or are you taking everything in the way you have always taken things? Our inner mind palace is much larger, and contains far more interesting things than any external world that we are looking out upon through the 5 windows of our senses. And in this inner invisible space, influences are constantly playing upon us both from higher and lower levels. All higher influences are trying to heal us, trying to make us understand how to live in our sacred space. However, as we all know, as long as we are identified with all suffering, all false personality, buffers, accounts, self-pity, memory of the past, with what we think will give us happiness, and what we have acquired from others. As long as we are stuck in the weeds of samsara, we cannot feel the influences that could free us and help us to grow and develop as beings, as children of the sun.